intuition is one thing that you really, I mean, with all the topics in the world, it's the one thing that you really can't say much about. Right? I mean, I'm going to talk about something that is non-verbal, non-conceptual, non-thought. So it's kind of hard, right? It's like a lot of things in spirituality. You can put labels on it, but that doesn't mean you're talking about the actual thing. It's just for the sake of convenience, for the sake of communication, you can say these things. So I thought I would start out with it. This was at Mariana's request, actually, because I talked to her a little bit about the talk, and she said that I could sort of explain a little bit about what I think about it, and instead of kind of leading up to it, you know, and sort of like getting the various references and kind of coming to that, but to say it right off the bat and then come back to it later. So what I would like to say about intuition has to do with the fact that it's, in my opinion, sort of it's sort of like a communication from our spirit, basically. The word atma in Sanskrit, the divine, you know, you could say God if you want. Whatever word works for you in terms of something that's unknowable, but it's definitely something that can communicate with us, can give us information through our minds, obviously, but not with words per se. So, and so there's going to be a lot of stuff here. I'm going to cover a lot of different grounds because I don't want you guys to get a definite pin, you know, this is what it is kind of thing. Just I'm going to suggest a lot of different things. This is a no dogma zone. So that means that we're not going to, you know, whatever you think it is, whatever you heard it was, whatever, you know, the preacher says it was, that's fine. It's a possibility. It's not. It's a possibility, maybe a probability, but it's not an absolute fact. Because I don't know how you establish absolute facts about something like intuition, but it's more just suggestive. Somebody called it the whisperings of the soul, you know. So it's kind of like that kind of thing. It's a little hard to put your finger on. So anyway, we'll start with some slides. So this is going to be the most heavy-duty thing I'm going to share right off the bat. I'm going to hit you with something. And so don't be intimidated by this. But this slide doesn't show the top part. Okay, well, the top part is says Drishya Viveka. And so this is Sanskrit. If anybody's ever heard of Advaita Vedanta, non-dual, it's non-dual practice of Hinduism, and it's sort of at the highest level. And this is actually a basic text. But the key thing I wanted to get at here is can be easily communicated in English. I just wanted to give you the Sanskrit so you can see what it looked like in Sanskrit, in Devanagari, and in transliteration into Roman letters. So here's the premise. Here's the setup. What we see with our eyes, the form, whatever we see this carpet here, you're looking at your screens at home, whatever we hear, you're hearing my voice. Whatever you hear, that with your ears, you see with your eyes, you touch with your sense of touch. All these things are done with that particular organ, whatever that organ is. So that's step one. Step one in this process. Step two in this process is that the eye or whatever senses is absorbed by the mind. So the mind has the option of attending to whatever we have multiple senses going on at one time right now. And you're attending to either sound or you're feeling your chair, you're trying to stay awake, whatever it is, all these things are happening at the same time. But our mind selects something to attend to, and then that becomes the focus. So that's step two, is that you have something you see, something you perceive in the world. That's done through one of our senses. If we didn't have any senses, we couldn't perceive the world around us. So because we have senses, we can perceive the world around us. The second step is that we use our mind to do that. So whatever we see, whatever we hear, that's attended to by our mind. Okay. So step 3 is that there is something observing that mind. In other words, we're not just our minds, we're not just our egos, not just, we're not just these thinking machines, that there's something beyond that. And that is what we're going to call the observer, what they call the observer, the witness, the observer or the witness, and sakshi in Sanskrit. And that is could easily be called intuition. I don't know, if somebody, like a Hebrew person would think of it as intuition, but for my money, it absolutely could be. And so that is this witness that can observe our minds at work, our feelings, our thoughts, when we're angry, when we're frustrated, when we're happy, when we're thinking about something, all these things. It's a witness that doesn't really do anything about it, but it's there, witness. So this is where we go in. And the last step in this, which is crucial, is the witness is not observed. There's not another level witnessing that. So that's it. And that goes all the way to Atman. So, or to the divine, to the supreme, ultimate, whatever, however you call it. So there's a 4-step process. And this is just for clarification of the fact that we are not sort of imprisoned in our minds. We're not imprisoned in our thoughts or feelings. We do have the ability to observe them and to, through those observations, to make modifications to allow us to expand and grow. And that's what spiritual growth is about. So anyway, that's the hardest thing we're going to talk about here. So everything else from here will be a lot easier. So I like this quote from Gibran. Then the gates of her heart were flung open, and her joy flew over the sea, and she closed her eyes and prayed in the silences of her soul. So that was a nice sort of poetic way to think about what we're talking about today. So we had something really hard technical, and now we have something really on the other end, really very, very poetic and romantic. So if we go to, you guys see all that? Okay, you guys just got drug over to the other side of the screen. So we have, okay, here's a good old dictionary. I hate it when speakers start out, they talk with dictionaries. Like, to me, it's the laziest thing in the world. But I'm going to do it. So intuition, the power or faculty of attaining to direct knowledge or cognition without evident rational thought and inference. Mm-hmm. Right there, that's probably a pretty common understanding of intuition. Immediate apprehension or cognition. Knowledge or conviction gained by intuition. I don't know how that could be a definition, honestly. You can't use the word in the definition, but anyway. And then a quick and ready insight. And I think in the sense of intuition, what I'm going to be talking about is all of those things, but it's more. So it just kind of even Webster says that it's, they're saying this is something beyond rational thought. This is something beyond concepts and all that sort of thing. And so here's some synonyms. Instinct, insight, to feel, suspicion, foresight, anticipation, impression, foreknowledge, perception, prescience, sixth sense, premonition, presentiment, prognostication, foreboding, and presage. Now, of course, a lot of those are way more specific than what we're going to be talking about. But they kind of just again, to give you a sense of what's the common understanding of intuition. Okay, so here, this is from Psychology Today. How can one develop intuition? Intuition is a form of knowledge that appears, so I got right off the bat. Intuition is a form of knowledge that appears in consciousness without obvious deliberation. It is not magical. It's not magical, guys. Just get that out of your mind. No such thing as magic. But rather a faculty which hunches are generated by in the unconscious mind rapidly sifting through past experience and cumulative knowledge. Now, I'm not putting down science, and this is probably what is measurable, right? Bruce? The scientists in the room. This is what's measurable, and this is what's perceivable. So, it's fine. Again, this is part of the iceberg. It's not the whole iceberg. But this, and I think this is again a common understanding that it's I mean, I don't know why they say it's not magical. I don't really think that was necessary. But rather a faculty which hunches, in other words, I just had an intuition about it. They don't really tell us much what intuition actually is. It's just like this is a perceivable thing, and that's from a psychologist's point of view that makes perfect sense. So we'll go deeper into this. So here's some quotes from a variety of, I think 3 people. I thought Jack was going to be here today, but I guess not, because I have one that I thought he would like. But these are people talking, they're well known. Eileen, Katie, Mary, that's one, right? That's for you. Okay, cease trying to work out everything with your mind. It will get you nowhere. Live by intuition and inspiration, and let your whole life be a revelation. This is David Lynch. He's really great movies. Intuition is the key to everything. Painting, filmmaking, business, everything. I think you could have an intellectual ability, but if you can sharpen your intuition, which they say is emotion and intellect joining together, then a knowingness occurs. That's the knowingness. That's what intuition is. Einstein. I believe in intuitions and inspirations. I sometimes feel that I'm right. I do not know. And Einstein talked a lot about intuition. Basically, everything he talked about, these things would come to him, incredible things that nobody else could think of. He was saying this from intuition. It wasn't because he was a genius, it was because he had great intuition, which I think is really cool. So I'm going to throw this word in here because I love this definition. This is nous, which Sue Prescott will remember from Harry Van Gelder talking about it. So it's a Greek word, and it's in Theosophical text they talk about. I think Blavatsky probably mentioned it. I didn't have time to look it up. But anyway, so it's a Greek concept, goes back to, I think, probably back to Plato or Aristotle. Sometimes equated to intellect or intelligence, is a term from classical philosophy for the faculty of the human mind necessary for understanding what is true or real. So they're not saying what it is, but they are saying it's part of the human mind, which is a little bit of a, but again, we can't prove it's not. But huge, vast ranges of philosophy think it is something beyond the mind itself. The mind is involved, but that's not it. So anyway, it's like a very high level of intelligence. So there's intuition personified. The person, anybody know who that is? Oh. Okay, so here's some quotes from were it not for this intuition, undying though often wavering, because so clogged with matter, human life would be a parody and humanity a fraud. This ineradicable feeling of the presence of someone outside and inside ourselves is one that no dogmatic contradictions nor external form of worship can destroy in humanity, let alone let scientists and clergy do what they will. So obviously she's, if you want to find out about intuition, she's a good source. Say her whole life was devoted to it. The means or instrument of opinion is sense or perception, of science, dialectics, of illumination, intuition, or divine instinct. To the last, reason is subordinate. It is absolute knowledge founded on the identification of the mind with the object known. There's something I can say. I'll skip that. Okay. The instinct of which I speak, being a projection of our perceptive consciousness, a projection which acts from the subjective to the objective, not vice versa. This is a crucial point. Subjective to objective. We're not used to thinking that. Awakens the spiritual senses in us and the power to act. These senses assimilate to themselves the essence of the object or of the action under examination and represent them to us as they really are, not as they appear to our physical senses and reason. So, this whole notion of intuition being kind of a fuzzy thing that doesn't really, it's like, it's what she's saying is that's the real thing. What we see with our eyes and what we see, these are all illusions. These are all perceptions, but they're not the real thing. The real thing is what we perceive with this weird thing called intuition. We're just in the process of trying to intuition must be developed and the matter judged from the true philosophical basis, for if it is contrary to true general rules, it is wrong. So, in other words, it's an intuition, but it has to be, according to what's actually happening. It's quote unquote real, which is the opposite. It is to be known from a deep and profound analysis by which we find out what is from egotism alone and what is not. If it is not due to egotism, then it is not. If it is due to egotism, then it is not from the spirit and is untrue. The power to know does not come from book study nor from mere philosophy. That's what we were talking about earlier in that. Yeah, and this is really a key point. We can study. There's tons of books that talk about intuition on this wall here, let alone the rest of the library. But those are just words. The thing is, we have to practice it. We have to find it in ourselves, or it's just concepts. And then she says, Plato expressed the same idea in a couple of lines. The light of and spirit of the divinity are the wings of the soul. They raise it to communion with the gods, and above this earth and with the spirit of man is too ready to soil itself. To become like the gods is to become holy, just and wise. That is the end for which man was created, and that ought to be his aim in the acquisition of knowledge. Again, we're talking about intuition. This is her understanding of intuition. Okay, now I'm going to talk about Krishnamurti a little bit. He's like radically different in his for those of you who are not familiar, he was chosen by the Theosophical Society to be the world teacher. And he, this is the turn of the 20th century. He rejected that world after his own. And so his whole thing was, let's not use a bunch of Sanskrit and highfalutin words. Let's talk about this in a language that people can understand. And his whole key was being aware, pure awareness, and being aware. And so, and that's my focus too. And it's really the only thing that's important is being aware, and not, as much as possible, not engaging the mind to kind of judge things and figure out things and do all these sorts of things, but just to kind of be aware, open awareness. And so there's some quotes and you can see what you think. So his first one, pretty much anybody who knows Krishnamurti's heard this one. I maintain that truth is a pathless land, and you cannot approach it by any path whatsoever, by any religion, by any sect. The moment you follow someone, you cease to be you cease to follow truth. So in other words, as soon as you listen to somebody else saying this is the truth, that's it. You cease following, because now it's not something that's coming from you. It's not something coming from your own truth. It's coming from the borrowed truth from somebody else. So truth is a path. There's no path. There's no spiritual path. We talk about the spiritual path around here all the time, and to a certain extent, we can say that there was. That's true, but where's the path? I mean, where are the markers? It's just our lives and the way we live. So that's point number one. Point number two: the more you know yourself, the more clarity there is. That's crucial. The more you know yourself, that's what we're all here for. You're going to know yourselves. Self-knowledge has no end. You don't come to an achievement. You don't come to a conclusion. It is an endless river. It's always from birth to death. The moment we take our first breath, the moment we breathe out for the last time. It's this ongoing learning process. You never get to the point where we know that's that. There's always more stuff to learn. Science, how much is there of science to learn? Wow. Mind-boggling. Even the most narrow discipline, there's so much to learn. No matter how refined you want to get. Hematology, let's say, or something like that. Whatever it is, there's always so much to learn, let alone life itself. And what we're doing here. Why are we here? Last one. The ability to observe without evaluating is the highest form of intelligence. The ability to observe without evaluating is the highest form of intelligence. So how often do we do that? Probably not very often. So getting used to this idea of just observing without making any judgments is what he's advocating. So here's restated. So it's his principles are a pathless land, follow no learning, follow no teaching, an endless river, no conclusion, no achievement, just observe. He says, without justification, without condemnation. Observe. Again, don't justify. Just say, okay, this is what's happening. With no judgment for any kind, for any reason. I realize these are challenging statements to people, so I'm putting them out there. And Mariana said she already has some things, even when I gave my little brief thing. So I'm hoping that everybody, you guys there, you guys here, will challenge me on this stuff, or not necessarily me, but what the speakers, the people I'm having speak on this topic of intuition. So then we jump all the way over to the New World and Carlos Castaneda, the teachings of Don Juan. This is actually from Tales of Power, which is his fourth book. Carlos Castaneda, for those who don't know, was an anthropologist, actually from Colombia originally. He came to the U.S. and in LA, UCLA, and studied Yaqui Indians in southern Arizona and northern Mexico. And he had a teacher named Don Juan. And this was one of the statements of Don Juan, which I love. This is true. I'll argue with anybody. We are luminous beings. We are perceivers. We are an awareness. We are not objects. We have no solidity. We are boundless. The world of objects and solidity is a way of making our passage on earth meaningful. It is only a description that was created to help us. We, or rather our reason, forget that the description is only a description. Thus, we entrap the totality of ourselves in a vicious circle from which we rarely emerge. So, when we leave meditations, and I was talking about that, but we're ultimately light. We think all this stuff that, as I get older, I'm going, whose hands are these? We were just talking about that, right, Carly? Looking out, because you start to see the body's decaying, it's becoming more and more decrepit. As time goes by, and it's like it's getting ready to check out. So better hope that that's not all you are. You're going to be sad, you know, you're going to lose your body, and then, but that's, fortunately, that's not all we are. And so there's a whole bunch that I could do easily hours of fascinating teachings of one. But anyway, for now, just this is a native indigenous perspective, which I think is really cool and very apropos to it. Okay, this is. I was thinking about whether I want to share this. I will anyway. So I wrote this a while back. I shared it with you recently. Okay, so just close your eyes about it's 3 sentences. You have no time, no more time to be a prisoner of time. You have this one chance, the next 5 breaths that will change the course of your life. By the time you finish the 5th breath, you will have discovered the key to infinite life. Do you want that? You can have it, but you need to want it so badly that you will fully abandon yourself to that which emerges from your deep introspection. And what you discover, you may think will be called impossible or not allowed. But whoever says that it is impossible will not be the one taking your 3rd, 4th, and final breath. They will also be coming to their own end, but not knowing their own inner truth, telling you that it is futile to avoid the inevitable. Yet it is only inevitable if one allows the fear born of nightmares to become the destiny, to be drawn inexorably to what one has been told but hoped never to hear. But holding your hands over your ears only blocks external sound. Become deaf to what you were told, what will destroy you slowly and waste your precious life. Hear only your own breathing. Follow only that flow, and it will guide you. Fall into the silence. Be awake and alive to what is calling. It seems impossible, but must come out into the sunlight. Must emerge and fly, taking you with it. Okay, remember that. So this is now this is somebody who knows what he's talking about. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, he wrote a book, or he didn't write a book, but a book was collected of his talks, which Bruce and Mary and others here are real familiar with. So he says, knowing is a reflection of your true nature along with being and loving. The knower and the known are added by the mind. It is the nature of the mind to create a subject-object duality where there is none. The subject-object duality, we may talk about this a bit later. This is the whole basis of the first thing I shared with you about the observing. Because ultimately, that's a false dichotomy. Ultimately, we're all just being. That may not be intuitively obvious. Here's the last one. This is from Steve Jobs. I love this. Steve Jobs is sadly no longer with us. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. Okay, so that's the end of what I had planned on sharing the slides. I will be talking a little bit from slides, but they're just going to be little pointers. You guys okay? Everybody fine? You all good? We're falling asleep? Eddie, other than that? No, I know, it's good. I'm just teasing you. I'm teasing you because we're good friends. I can tease you. How are you guys doing online? All good? Thumbs up? Nobody's left the screen yet, so. I guess you could turn off your screens. But thank you for being a patient audience. So anyway, so I'll talk about a few things just kind of off the cuff. I have these little prompts here because I wouldn't remember a single word if I didn't have it there. So anyway, first thing is about the motto of the Theosophical Society. There is no spiritual path higher than who or what you really are. Now that's a little bit of a translation of Satyan Nasti Paro Dhammaha. Satyan does definitely mean, Satyan is translated as truth, but it actually is closer to something like Atma, or wisdom, which would be. And truth is an easy word people can understand. Truth is a very limited context of what the word Satya implies. And dharma is often said, called religion, which is definitely a meaning of the Sanskrit word, but it's like the Sanskrit dharma has a lot of different meanings. And one that we use here is the spiritual path, basically. What your dharma is what it is that you're called to do. Not what you have to do, not what you're told to do, but what you're called to do. And that is coming from your ultimate essence, which is that thing which incarnates from one life to the next. And so everybody's dharma is different. Ultimately, we're all evolving to spirit. But in the meantime, we're doing various things here to kind of work out spiritual issues, spiritual matters. And so this is where intuition really is important. This is where it's fundamental. It's not even a possibility. You're not going to evolve spiritually if you don't use your intuition and trust it, become confident in the person. That's who you really are. Just thoughts. It's not that when you make a decision, you put the yellow paper with it, plus and minus. It's not that. It's something that you know. You meet somebody and you're kind of like, or you're like, and it's like you don't even know why you feel that way. There's some inner guidance that's happening. Just hard to put your finger on it. We're not comfortable with things that aren't easy to understand, easy to figure out, quantifiable. But this is one of them, and this is why this place is here. Ultimately, is to foster that for each of us, and for anybody that comes in here wondering. Life has to be more than was taught in school. Just feel that. I just know that somehow, but I don't know exactly what it is. This is where you find that out. This is the motto of the Theosophical Society, Satya Nasti Dharma. There's no religion higher than truth, is the way it's written, but I like this. A little more accurate. Okay, so there's three things that we're told. There's who you think you are. There's who others think you are. Who you really are. Those three things are different. You know that? Anybody not know that? Who you think you are, who others think you are, and who you really are three different things. And we want to make that all one thing. We want it to all be who you really are. So you got to work on yourself first. Other people are going to think all kinds of things about you. And some people might not like you. Some people might love you. Some people might think you're really smart. Some people might think you're really stupid. You know, it's like, okay, you know, ultimately it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Let's not worry about that. Let's worry about finding, it's not worry. Worry's not a good word. Let's focus on finding who we really are. It's not an easy process. We're told a lot of things about who we are. And so our bosses tell us one thing, our kids tell us one thing, our parents tell us one thing, our friends tell us one thing. You the guy at the store tells us one thing, the guy that just, cut you off in traffic tells you one thing, and so these things are all information, but are they relevant? What's really relevant is who you really are. So this is where, again, intuition is crucial. Okay, I'm going to hit this really quickly. There's a favorite thing, these theosophical topics, speakers like to talk about the theosophical layer cake. This is what we have in the present UTS, where you have this layer, your physical body, you have the astral body, you have the lower mental, the higher mental, the antipatana, and living, and I don't know, I think that's it. She called it a theosophical layer cake, and it's like that's great for kind of conceptualizing in general, but people get wrapped up in that. I want to keep it real. I want to keep it our intuition right now, right here. So this is the Vijnanamaya Kosha. Okay, so this is a conceptualization from Hinduism, and this very colorful chart, which looks like something from Las Vegas. Was the only thing that had some writing on it, I could find. Here's the take-home message. See the lowest level, there's the physical body. You see that lowest with the physical body. Now you've got a bunch of other bodies, another energetic levels, what they call sheaths in Sanskrit. But beyond that, and this is the layer cake, and Theosophy also does a very nice job. To me, it's a bit fussy. I think that we don't need to have it be quite that complicated. They're basically saying there's an energetic body, which is prana, which is our etheric level. It's chakras. It's people that can see auras can see this level. Then there's the Manamaya Kosha. But they're translating this as emotional, but I think emotional is part of it, but also thinking, anything to do with the mind. Then beyond that, the Vijnanamaya Kosha is this intelligence, the discovery of intelligence, which all life also has. This corresponds to this intelligence. And beyond that is what's called Anandamaya, or the bliss body, this translation. And then beyond that is Brahman, which is not body. It's beyond body. So they show this big beautiful giant behind everything, but that's just a way to conceptualize it. So it doesn't, none of this stuff really matters. I just want you to understand that we're not just a physical body, that we actually do correspond with different energetic levels, which are perceivable. And, but they're not perceivable through a normal way of seeing something or hearing something. It has to be done mainly through meditation or meditative approach to things. So that's all I'll say about it. So here's some ways that we use intuition that people here are very familiar with. Nico's going to be doing workshops starting next month on tarot. And we have a number of astrologers here. Every Monday night we have Hugh comes in, who's a wonderfully gifted astrologer. Athena and I just did an I Ching workshop today. And shamanism is becoming very popular. I studied in anthropology when I was in college back in the Stone Age. And now it's a big deal. Everybody knows about it. We were studying the Siberians and these people in South America and stuff. Now it's every other person is a shaman, has a sign, shaman. Here, I'll fix whatever's your problem. So, but these are all things that require intuitive things. I was talking to Natalie before. She was talking about Reiki. She's exploring that. And again, intuition for any kind of energy healing. Mariana does Reiki. Some people here use therapeutic touch, which is definitely that. Intuition is crucial. It can't be done without it, honestly. Because you're working with energy. It's not, you're not seeing some kind of smoke going up or something. It's energy. It's not something you can necessarily perceive with the physical senses, but it's still there. So understanding this is something that we can perceive primarily through intuition. I'd say I don't know how else you would proceed. Maybe a way. I hope you guys are writing down your questions and your objections to what I'm saying, because definitely tell me where I went wrong. But anyway, so these are a few of the ideas that I have. Okay, and then this was just referring back to what I told you earlier. How I started the talk was talking about the witness and the observer. And this is something that when I got involved with this big issue of Viveka 2 or 3 months ago, I'm in a group to study Sanskrit texts and it hit me like a ton of bricks. That the way I shared with you, the idea that we see with our eyes, our eyes are seen with our mind. The witness observes the mind. Nothing observes the witness. So it's like kind of like a Zen poem. It just went, wow, it's an explosion for me. I've yet to say it to anybody else who's had the similar explosion, but that's okay. Everybody has their explosions the way they happen. The story about this man who had been working for 20 years on one enlightenment. He was raking, and the pebble hit a piece of bamboo and like that, and he was awakened. So we all have our our things that trigger that. I'm not saying anything about my awakening. It was really cool insight. Okay, I'm not sure how much I want to talk about this. This has to do with more people that have come to the things I've done on the Tao Te Ching. There's a whole idea of wu-wei. Wu-wei is sort of spontaneous acting without thinking, just spontaneously moving through the world. It's not like making plans and figuring out everything. It's just kind of doing what needs to be done as they occur. It wouldn't be possible for an airline person because you got flights to catch and you got schedules and all this stuff. But within a certain context, it is. So it's definitely a frame of mind. Zurun is this idea of our natural way, the way we actually are. The literal translation is self. Is how we are actually. And so acting naturally from that, like not eating food is bad for us. Not understanding that this particular thing that I like to eat actually doesn't really serve the body in any way. It's a bunch of sugar, a bunch of fat, whatever it is. And so forth and so on. So acting naturally, corresponding to our own nature. And Wuning and Wuxing are essentially no thought, Wuning is no thought, and Wuxing is no mind, no heart mind actually. And these again are a thing where you're getting away from conceptualizing the world and acting more from intuition. So I just got the So intuition is not a thought. Mind is contained within it. And I like to see it this way because this is where I see it. But I like to communicate that also because I think that intuition is kind of you can visualize, if you want to have a physical description, three-dimensional description, you've got our mind, then surrounding that and interpenetrating it is the intuition. And so it's always available, it's always there for us. If the mind doesn't get in the way, the mind is really good. The ego is a really good, blocker, and it's very adept at blocking anything that allows intuition and sort of a spiritual sense to come in, because the ego always wants to be in charge. That's its job, it's to be in charge. Okay, yeah. So these are just, it's funny, I was thinking I was doing this talk to us, I better write down some stuff. So 2 or 3 days ago, I wrote down some stuff. These are kind of things that popped in my brain about 2 or 3 weeks. So this whole idea, actually, Susan remembers this when we were talking at the TS about how, our laptop is, we treat it like a little pet, like cars, everything in the world has life. Seeing the world that way is a really good way to develop intuition. You start seeing that everything in the world corresponds. They're not just things. We tend to think they're just things, but the world is alive, in the Castaneda books I talked about earlier, and many others. And in Latin America, there's much more of an idea of what they call magical realism. A number of authors have written novels that basically, in a land where everything's kind of alive, magical, and even if it's not true, that's where I want to live. And if it's not true, fine. I'll live in my magical world by myself. So, and I think this is it. So the last thing is talking about three things. And this is, again, from Castaneda. There's also something that I discovered. Just kind of debating whether we can talk about this. So I'm working on a book, which is an expansion of the I Ching, called the Wu Jing, which is based on 27 trigrams instead of 8. And so, as you can imagine, it's much more complex. And all the information is given to me by what I call the night spirits, which are when you come out and walking at night. It's completely dark in nature, natural area. Actually, Nico's been there, my magical lamp. So anyway, but all this information comes through, and it comes. The idea is that there's the known, right? And the known's everything that we can see is present in our constant, awareness. Then there's the unknown, which is everything we have yet to discover. But it's definitely something that we can know. We just don't know it yet. Right? What's going to happen tomorrow? You don't know. But it is at some point something that will be known. So we have the known, the unknown. Then there are things that are unknowable. And so this is where intuition, you cannot live without it. That is the area in the Castaneda books called the Nahual, for those of you who read it. And there's not a lot you can say about it, other than the fact that to kind of keep it as a possible theory, that there is such a place. And it's not really a place, it's not really a time, it's not really space, it's not really any of that kind of thing. But just to kind of keep it out there, it's kind of put a pin, a bookmark, Lucy's things, so they talk about that.